నా యా మేడం ఒకసారి అక్కడ నాది పింక్ కలర్ స్పైరల్ నోట్స్ ఉంది ఒకసారి అది తెచ్చి పెట్టారు బయటే ఉంది సర్టీ సో టుడే uh, we will select exclusively 3 topics and do deeply into trying to see every angle and dimension related to these 3 topics. First, I'll do anti-defection law. We will do Vice President of India. The reason being, recently the Vice President of India resigned. So we'll see if all the articles related to Vice President, what are his functions, what's his role as per the Constitution. Okay, and also we will do Uttarkashi floods. So we'll do these floods with the uh, mm, with the idea of understanding why are these floods more prone in sensitive areas like Himalayas. Okay, so we will do Uttarkashi floods issue. Okay, let's get started. So we'll discuss these 3 things. Now, you have very famously called as Ayaram Gayaram phenomena. So what happened was in the year of 1967, there was an Haryana MLA called Gaya Lal. So this person changed his party 3 times on the same day. Okay. So that is when it started Ayaram Gayaram. So all these political deflections from then on, you use this term where you use this term very frequently. Ayaram Gayaram. Okay. So that is the first time when this political instability has attained some traction. Okay. Later on, so this switching of parties after winning elections, that is what is called as defection, right? So there are also 3 circumstances under which a person is supposed, a person can be categorized under the purview of anti-defection law. I will also discuss that further. Okay. So visible, yeah. So that was the first ever time in 1960s when this phenomena was recognized. And then actually a law was made for the first time. So for the first time, as part of, with the help of 52nd Amendment Act, 10th schedule was added into the Constitution of India. So here you note down 52nd Amendment Act 1985, 10th schedule. Very important. And in the 10th schedule were mentioned the grounds of disqualification for any MLA or an MP. So what all happened as part of the 52nd Amendment Act? Okay. First thing was political parties. The word political parties was formally used in the Constitution of India for the first time. Okay. And okay, these things are missed. Okay, and the grounds of disqualification were very clearly mentioned. Okay, we will now see what are these grounds of disqualification and then come back to what happened in 2003. Okay, so first is for any MLA or MP, a little disturbed today. So from a elected political party, so after elections are over, if a person is deflecting from an opposition party to elected party, that's one clause. Okay, that is when he is eligible. Okay, I need a break. Sorry. Check, check. Okay. So, what are these four conditions or the grounds under which any elected representative, as in MP or MLA, would be can be disqualified? Okay, there are lots of ifs and buts in the 10th schedule in the anti-defection law. Okay, that's the reason there is more scope of the law not being implemented as envisioned by the makers. Okay, so what are these four conditions? After the elections are done, a winning MLA or an MLA who has actually won the elections is switching parties. Okay, he's coming into the ruling party. That is that is one case, one scenario. Otherwise, when coming to independent members, if independent members have won the elections and they are trying to join the ruling party, then independent member can be disqualified. Okay. When coming to nominated members, you see nominated members in Rajya Sabha, 12 members as suggested by President of India. Okay. But again, don't forget the clause on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers who are headed by the PM. So if you actually understand the roots of it, it is the ruling party, the okay, in the form of Council of Ministers, who is suggesting the president to nominate so and so members who come into the Rajya Sabha with a writing vote, with a voting right. So they can make a bill to be passed easily, they can stop a bill from being passed. Yeah, we will get to that later again. So it is about, so nominated members, after being nominated, they have a time of 6 months. Within this 6 months, they can form an, because these nominated members are usually outside of the political field. Yeah. So once this person comes into the assembly, sits there, realize, then forms a connection with any of the political parties, he is allowed to join a political party, but within the time frame of 6 months. Then that is fine. If he joins a party after 6 months, then it becomes a ground for disqualification. Okay. So we talked about nominated members, we talked about independent members, we talked about winning representatives. Okay, these are the grounds which are mentioned in the 10th schedule. Now, there was one exception given. The exception stating, if one member is doing the floor crossing, it is fine. If more than 2/3 members of the same political party as a group join some other party, then they do not fall under the purview of this act. That was the exception given as part of 52nd Amendment Act 1985. So whenever you are doing amendments, whenever you are doing articles, whatever you are doing, more especially with respect to the Constitution of India, these exceptions become very important. Okay? Exceptions, you always pay more attention to exceptions. So what is the exception? If 2/3, more than 2/3 members of the same political party switch to another political party, then they do not fall for the grounds of disqualification. Okay, that's the thing. And as I already mentioned, there are many clauses of ifs and buts. So if a person, if one particular person is shifting parties, it again becomes the discretion of the speaker to decide yes or no. Should he take the motion? What action must be taken? It becomes the discretion of the speaker. And usually speaker is from the ruling party. Okay. So that is about the 52nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1985, which added 10th schedule about the anti-defection. Okay. Now, later in 2003, there came another Constitutional Amendment Act, 91st Amendment Act in 2003. Okay. So here, this exception was removed. The 2/3 majority exception was removed. So what is the scenario today? There is nothing as such for group deflections. There is no relaxation that is given for group relaxations as of today, because that exception was removed as part of 91st Amendment Act. So even these details become important for you. In prelims, they usually confuse you by mentioning what was the change brought in, brought as part of what constitutional amendment. So the change is important as part of what amendment act it was brought also is important. Okay. And they have just made the act stricter because as we have already discussed about the problems that were there. So they have just made the act stricter. So how did they do it? Whoever, so those ministers or the elected representatives who have switched their parties will not be qualified for any ministerial roles. Okay, according to the law, they cannot be given any ministerial roles. And so this was an issue that has happened in the case of Pondicherry government. Um, Council of Ministers are these special type of the number of ministries that the CM allocates to his MLAs. Okay. Now, okay, I'll not take names. So in a state for a political party, now people would have joined this party for the sake of ticket to be able to contest in the elections. They would have deflected from different political parties before the elections, would have joined them. There are few senior members who have been very seriously working for the party from a very long time. So all such people need recognition. So what is the recognition that the political party can give back after winning? They can give them ministries, give them more responsibilities to make sure that real policies can get implemented. So but there is limited number of ministry posts. Say there are 10 ministries and 20 eligible candidates. What can the CM do now? So what they did was just created ministries, departments, and made all the 20 people as ministers. Okay. Now the total strength of the assembly is 25 and 20 of them are ministers. Okay. So there was a cap that was bought on the number of members that can be there in the Council of Ministers. So even that was done as part of 91st Amendment Act, not related to anti-defection law, but this is just one other clause that was added as part of 91st Amendment Act. With respect to anti-defection, there are two things that has happened. They have removed the exception point 1. Point 2 is they are now more eligible for any ministerial post. All of these deflected MLAs. Okay. So that is what it is about the amendment. Done. Visible. So as I already said, we are doing any law, you try to understand what are the challenges. There are always challenges, more especially in this democracy like India, largest democracy of the world. So there are many challenges. Let us see what they are. First thing is, it becomes the discretion of the chairperson of the house. Yes, it's chairman in the case of Rajya Sabha, speaker in the case of Lok Sabha, when we are talking about the parliament. So it is the same even with the states. It is chairman in the case of state legislative assembly, state legislative council, speaker in the case of okay. So the problem is that it becomes a speaker's discretion. Now some MLA or an MP has become is eligible to be held under anti-defection law. Doesn't mean he has to necessarily action has to be taken against him. No. Okay, it becomes a speaker's discretion if he has to consider the case at all or not. That's one major challenge. And as we already discussed, the chairperson mostly comes from the ruling party. So all of this is becoming the decision of the party in power indirectly. Yeah, exercised through the office of speaker. That's first major challenge. Okay. And second problem is judicial review. So next problem is judicial review. So when the matter is still with the speaker, judiciary cannot involve into it. As part of our separation of powers theory, whatever discussion is happening in the Lok Sabha, in the House, will not be discussed by the Supreme Court. Whatever cases that are adjudice, that are still pending with the Supreme Court, should not be discussed outside. So that is the separation of powers as part of separation of powers theory. Now, courts cannot involve till a judgment is made by the speaker. After a decision is made, that is when that case becomes eligible for someone to contest in the Supreme Court or the High Court. As is, court cannot involve in this issue. Only after a decision is made, then it can be challenged for the decision to be reviewed. Clear? So these are the two major challenges. And this judicial review, there was this confusion if it can be a part of judicial review or not at all. Because anything in the discretion, as part of discretionary powers. So what is discretion? It is giving you the right to decide if it is right or wrong. So how can you question my discretion? My arguments might be different from yours. That's the reason I have these discretionary powers. So a fact can be questioned. Why is this so? How can an opinion be called wrong? If the number was 90% and is shown as 70%, you can call me wrong. How can you call me wrong for my opinion? So that's the huge gap that is there, not just in this case, but in every which case. So, for example, governor referring a bill to president, it's his discretion. So you cannot question the discretion. But the process in which he has come to the conclusion, that can be questioned. Based on what facts did he decide? That can be reviewed in the court. That is eligible for judicial review. And this was said as part of Kyoto Holohan case. So even this case is important. So this comes under judicial review, but only after the speaker has taken his decision. Okay? Done? Okay. So we will also discuss few other criticisms against whatever is happening. Okay? Now, a member has moved from, say, ruling party to opposition party. It might sound um, prima facie, not so convenient. Why would someone move from ruling party to opposition party? Now, you have to understand here that whatever bill is passed in the parliament is passed through voting. So the number of votes count. Only if there is a majority, only then the bill is passed. Now, there is something called as party whip. That is a decision that is already taken by the head and has to be followed by all the members who are representing that political party. And this whip is also not for all bills. There are again many rules on which whip is given, on few decisions on which whip is not given. Okay. So when there is, and usually how it happens is there is a common consciousness. Only based on it, voting is done. There are very rare chances wherein there is an individual opinion of yours and you are not able to get convinced to the collective decision. There are very few cases. Now, if let me say 10 members are being moved, 10 members have deflected from the ruling party and are going to a opposition party. Now the ruling party has lost these 10 votes. If only they were here, if only there was a whip, they would have supported the bill that was proposed by the ruling party. Now, because these 10 votes are lost, it is a threat even to their government. There are not just a no confidence motion, there are so many other bills, if not passed in the parliament, leads to the collapse of the government. Yes, there's no confidence motion. These are directly related to establishing the power. But there are also other financial bills. For example, budget. What if the budget is not passed? Government collapses. Yeah. So these voting becomes very important. Now, with these defections, what is happening is this voice of debate is being lost. Okay. And then comes the role of the speaker. We have already discussed. That's one major drawback. Okay. And third point is there is no time frame for the speaker to decide. It is just his discretion, not just upon identifying the considering to take action against this person or not, but within what time frame should this action be taken. Even that is totally speaker's discretion. Okay, having no time frame, that's one problem. And then we talked about this more number of people moving at the same time. We call it as political horse trading. Now with the 91st Amendment Act, that part is corrected. Okay, otherwise these huge mergers were called, were did not fall under the purview of this law. Okay, and then transparency. Yes, speaker wouldn't tell you on what criteria did he decide to disqualify a member, on what criteria he left the member do the floor crossing. So there is lack of transparency on this procedure. These are the major problems. Okay. So let us see what are the possible suggestions that we can give. Okay. So these suggestions, I'll give you an idea on how to do it. Let us first write what are the challenges. So once you list the challenges, it becomes very important for you. It becomes very easy for you to give the suggestions. The first challenge is that speaker's discretion. It is becoming the sole right of the speaker. So what can be done to overcome this? Maybe not just the speaker, maybe a committee can be formed, as in the case of removal of judges and impeachment of president. Maybe a committee can be formed with senior political members and maybe persons from judiciary. And this committee would look into that particular issue and take a decision. So this way we are reducing the chances of misuse by the speaker. Yeah. And what was the second thing? Time frame. There is no time frame. Now you can make it time bound. Okay. So now you can make it time bound. And like we talked about the voice being lost, the popular being lost, popular voice being lost. When I say popular voice, what do I mean? Opinion of people, because we are an indirect democracy. If an MLA is talking something, he's talking on the behalf of the people of his constituency. So his opinion is what his people want. Okay, that might be in favor of the government sometimes, the ruling party sometimes, might be against the policy of the ruling government sometimes. So he is there to voice this opinion of his people. Yeah. Now, because of this law, might be people are not able to talk. Might be people are voting biasly. Might be votes are taken off from one side and put on the other side. So what can be done here? Like an amendment was made that what was changed as part of 91st Amendment Act, they were they were not allowed to take any ministerial roles. So that was a punishment given to the representatives who have defected ones. In the same way, the right of vote must also be taken away for crucial bills wherein the popularity of the government is also proved. Like I already talked about, something like constitutional amendment bill, the no confidence motion, financial bills like budget. So this is just a suggestion, and also be careful while you are giving when you are trying to suggest radical things into the government. Your tone has should be very neutral when you are writing such kind of suggestions in your answer. Okay, you cannot talk like government in power is making mistakes. The suggestion that you are giving must be very subtle. The tone becomes very important there, otherwise it becomes like you are that person who feels that the system is wrong and is trying to change the system. That is not the impression that we want to create. Okay, that's one thing. And encourage inter-party democracy. So why this happens? Inside the party, within the party. What is democracy? You don't inherit your power, you are elected by the people. So that's same concept into party. Who is the party president? Okay, we know these major parties in India coming from the time of the independence, and how the major hold is still with the same family. Youth leader forever. Yeah. So what happens to a person who is really eligible and more qualified than this person is? He's there in the party for a very long time, seeing if he will get any opportunity. He's still not getting the power to implement all the ideals he have. What will he do? Deflect. He would want to join another political party. What if that person was given chance in his root party itself? All the development progress he would have done with the help of his party only. He was forced to move out because you can have all the ideas, you can have all the ethics, morals, the dedication to progress your nation, but you also need authority. Isn't it why you have chosen UPSC? Want to become that IAS and IPS? If only you want to serve the society, you can serve as a part of an NGO also. But what's the difference? You have an authority as an IAS officer. None. Now, why all of this is in news now? BRS MLAs. There is an issue in Telangana government that 10 BRS MLAs have moved into the ruling party. Okay. Now, Supreme Court has involved into this issue and put a time frame to the speaker for the first time, asking to make a decision about these 10 people within 3 months. Okay, that 3 months time frame is still not done. Once it is done, depending on what is happening in the house, we will discuss this issue again later. Okay, but then read everything around anti-defection law. Done? Next topic. You know what happened in Uttarkashi? First week of August, flash floods. So whenever such things are happening, it becomes important for you to understand the geography around that region. So what all do you pick up from this? Not the number of people who died, not the number of people who were hurt, missing, what forces came when on what day, who are the leaders who visited and who missed. Not these details. You try to understand the geography of that region. What is the major river system? Any national parks? Okay, you learn these things. And as usual, you will learn you will revise the concept of flash floods, cloudburst, glacial lake outburst. You will read all these concepts. Okay. So, Uttarkashi floods in the district, Uttarkashi is a district of Uttarakhand. Okay. And this happened in a village called Dharali. Okay. Now, there was a flash flood followed by a mudslide. Okay, that was the major issue that has happened. And all of this is triggered by extreme rainfall. Okay, now what is, okay, just remember this river name, Kheer Gut or Kheer Ganga river. This is the one that has overflowed and caused all the catastrophe. Okay, this is as part of the Himalayan. I told you we will see what is the geography of that region. Yes, so let us see what are the glaciers that are there in this region. Okay, one is Gangotri Glacier. This is the source of the river Bhagirathi. This or summit in the case of a mountain. This is named as Gomukh. This is the terminal point. And this is where the river Bhagirathi starts from, the origin point. Okay, it is also a major tourism destination and a pilgrim destination. Okay, that's one glacier as part of Uttarakhand. We are learning what are the important glaciers that are there in Uttarkashi. Okay, other one is Chaturangi Glacier System. So these are just the names. They will ask these as part of your prelims questions. What are all the glaciers that are part of Uttarkashi region? They will give you a list. So you identify what all are there. ACE, ABD. Yeah. Can you see this? Kalindi, 4. Vasuki, 5. Maitri, 6. Meru. This is more important of all. Big of all, important of all. And we know how all these glacial systems are being affected by climatic change. Climatic change, very specifically, global warming, rise in the average temperature on Earth's surface. So, this warmth is causing the glaciers to melt. Done, noted down the glacials of Uttarkashi. Yeah. Now, let us see if you are talking about such disasters, especially in these sensitive areas like Himalayan regions, let us see what are the major causes of this disaster. I have taken them as a part of this incident that has happened, but also other common causes. Okay, I always keep telling you, you have a list of common causes wherein you find out whatever suits fits this specific criteria and add it into your answers. So this is one such common framework that you can have for any disaster. Okay, so here majorly you classify them as natural, artificial. Artificial causes as in man-made causes. Anthropogenic. This is man-made. Anthropogenic factors. Okay, and then we will see what are the climatic and geological factors that have caused these floods. Okay, one major thing is cloudburst. You very frequently listen to something called as cloudburst. So, what is cloudburst? 10, yes. So, 10 centimeters of rainfall, that is 100 mm of rainfall in 1 hour in 10 square kilometers area. So, this is considered as cloudburst according to IMD. Okay, according to IMD. So, you will also learn these definitions and these numbers as said by which organization. Okay, so that is cloudburst. And reasons for cloudburst? Anything that, in any reason that is causing rainfall. You add more to it, it becomes extreme rainfall. You add more to your cause, it becomes extreme rainfall as the result. Extreme rainfall will here and there result into cloud bursts. Yes? So what is happening here? What is the definition of cloudburst? Extreme rainfall exceeding 100 mm/hour as defined by IMD. So this is called as cloudburst. Okay, why is it happening? When the moist monsoon air is colliding with the cold mountain air, this leads to condensation. Going back to our fifth class concept, వానలు ఎందుకు పడతాయి? It is not God doing anything. Condensation. Next. Starts with evaporation. That is in water particles from the ground evaporate, raise to a certain height, and in the height you have something called, there are these dust particles which are called as nuclei in the technical terms. So these dust particles become the nuclei. The moisture that is picked up from the ground catches the nuclei, forms into these molecules, slowly turn into condensate and form as ice particles. They become ice particles. Yes, condensation is happening. Now they are there. It becomes, the weight becomes more, not be able to bear anymore. Then comes this warm air. This warm air melts the ice, falls back as rain, water droplets, sometimes as ice itself. So cloud burst. I told you extreme rainfall, you add all these extreme words. Normal condensation, normal rainfall. Rapid condensation, extreme rainfall. Extreme rainfall, cloud burst. So what is happening here? Rapid condensation is happening. Now, glacial collapses. The word collapse will make you understand what is this outburst. This huge block of ice suddenly falling into the river system, pushing all the water out of its course. Usually there is a specific flow of water, so the course of the river is defined. There is again a difference between how this course is happening to the Himalayan rivers versus the South Indian rivers. There is no such sudden change that is happening to the course. It is well and it is well. It is always defined, mostly, unless and until there is a huge rainfall or flood. Otherwise, the course of the South Indian rivers is not changing, but not is the case as the Himalayan rivers. Because of various reasons, the course keep changes. River Koshi, yeah, sorrow of Bihar. That is because the course of the river is changing. It is going from the left side of your house. You have built a building. Now it has decided to go flow through your building. Change its course. Okay. So that is what is called as glacial lake outburst flood. So when this huge part of a glacier, when you say glacial melting, not that all 100 square kilometers of ice melts at one point of time. You would have seen it in your everyday kitchen. You have a huge ice block. A crack happens just because of the heat. Not necessarily the whole ice cube is melting every time. Say 4 or 5 ice cubes are attached together. Slowly, they start melting and they become separate. Yes. So now this one huge block, just to maximize the scale, imagine to a glacier, a crack has occurred. Now this is falling suddenly into the water, pushing all the water into the nearby regions. If there are any villages, more damage. If it is just happening in the forests, loss of trees and animals. Rock ice avalanches and landslides. Okay. What could be the anthropogenic factors? So these are very common factors that you can use anywhere. Unplanned town building, poor land use planning. When I'm writing an answer about the Uttarakhand floods, I will use this Dharali's market. Constructions in unstable zones. I told you. You're sure that the river only flows to the left, you build your house to the right side, right bank of the river. Now it has decided to move, change its course, flow through your building. So that's the whole issue around the Hydra of Hyderabad also. How the catchment areas, how the full tank level areas are encroached because of urbanization and unplanned town planning. So there is one theory saying from the vegetable market from the Dharali region, there was this mindless dumping into the shores of the river. Unplanned development. Bhagirathi corridor. We talked about this river Bhagirathi. It starts from what glacial? Origins from Gangotri Glacier. Okay. Other reasons are deforestation. Yes. Even these are very common things that you can use everywhere. So what is the impact? Loss of life and displacement. This becomes very important. Your problem of migration. Displacement is forceful migration. Displacement of communities becomes very important. Loss of life is happening. Displacement is also as big a problem as loss of life. And destruction of homes and livelihoods. Disruption of tourism, because tourism is the key economic activity, especially in areas like Uttarakhand. What is the impact? Geomorphic impact, again, all the debris that is collected now. Debris is not just the market debris, which was the cause I am talking about, but because of flooding into the village, all the construction that it has picked up. Now, all of that is blocking the course of river at some point of time for future disasters. So the whole Bhagirathi system, the course of the system has changed. So it is blocking the downstream flow. Creation of unstable slopes, because many landslides would also happen as part of the sudden gush of water. Unstable slopes. So more landslides in future. Increased risk of future landslides. Hydroelectric stations and any other infrastructure project. All infrastructure, all projects. More especially like hydroelectric stations, what would happen? There is a disruption of power supply. Economic activity. It's all interlinked. Glaciers destabilizations. So as part of this scenario of the Uttarkashi disaster, what all in what all angles are we looking at this disaster? First thing, you will know what are the climatic change implementations. So this is from the ecology environment point of view. So you will learn the topic in this dimension. You will see what are the disaster management things that can be done as part of your geography and governance, and what is the development planning that can be done as part of governance again. So this is how any disaster that is happening, any major issue that is happening, you don't just confine yourself to the happenings there. You look around. What are the key takeaways? So what are the problems that you have identified? What could be a possible solution? That is your mindset essentially. Yes. So about the climate change implications, most favorite answer of every UPSC aspirant, you can write at least 12 points. So, as part of climate change implications, because we are talking about a place like Uttarkashi, now what becomes is about the mountain communities. They are mostly tribes. I'm saying mostly, not always. And their protection is as is a challenge to government. And in cases like this, because of the forced migrations, they are losing their habitat completely. When coming to disaster management, improved early warning systems, the need of it, you can see in the case of Hyderabad, very recently, last week, they have given holidays to schools for 3 days and half days for next 3 days. There was not a single drop of rain. The day they were full day schools, children struggle to go back home. So not just having a warning system for the sake of warnings, your orange, yellow, red warnings have to be correct. Correct? Depends on the technology. Prompt actions is governance. Collecting the data, analyzing it, giving the warning on time is governance. Identifying the hazard prone areas, making separate maps. So all of this as part of your science and technology. More especially your satellites. about the zoning regulations. What are the regulations that has to be in place? What are the protocols? As in the involvement of army, national disaster responsive force, state disaster responsive force. So what is their role? When are they stepping in? How far away are they? What is their response time? Apart from all of this, this is the response action. Where are all the victims taken to? Hospitals. And infrastructure here, huge question mark. Medical staff, in terms of medical staff, in terms of medical supply. It is only a 10-bedded hospital. Now the whole village needs it. Are you able to accommodate? What is the transportation to nearby villages? How quickly are you able to send them to nearby places? Hospital infrastructure. And then finally comes the policy implementation. How strict are the rules? About the catchment areas, how strict are the rules? About the land use regulation. Okay. This is all about Uttarkashi floods. Done? You understood in what angle are you reading it? So, as part of this also, you will understand what are the climate change implications. What is global warming causing? You will read all of that. You will read about glacial lake outbursts. You will read about landslides. You will read about cloudburst. That is the geographic angle of it. And then you will see after a disaster has occurred. First thing is what is the cause of the disaster. Then you will see what are the geography of that area. You will read what are the national parks, any endemic species, what are the tribes, any specific tribe that has got affected, or a specific community, any speciality about that community. You will read all of those things. You will understand the river systems, origin till end. Where is that river system originating from? Because it is a Himalayan region, we also saw what are the glacial systems around it. One part. Next, the disaster has occurred. What is the response? So that comes the part of disaster management. Integral part of your syllabus exclusively mentioned. So you will see what are the various steps in this disaster management. Starting from response. What are the agencies that are involved? What is the role of each agency? What are the problems there? What are the policies in place? What are the organizations in place? You read all of this. As part of disaster management, you understand all of this. And then comes the governance part of it. On how should the policies be strict, more especially in these ecologically sensitive areas, in the eco-sensitive zones, as they are called. How is this zonation done? How is the regulation of these zones done? That's the governance angle to it. And then the science and technology part, wherein how can a new technology come, maybe to identify or for the rescue operations? How can your technology help? Making sense? Yes? Shall we move to the next topic? Vice President of India. So the very recent Vice President, Jagdeep Dhankar, he resigned. and is the, I told you, anything that has happened for the first time becomes very important. He is the first Vice President of India to submit his resignation mid-term. Okay, so it becomes very important. We will not just see, we will here not see what are the reasons for his resignation, because political party has something to say, opposition always has many more to say. Those are not the reasons we will see, but we will see the process of election of the vice president, removal of the vice president, resignation of the vice president. Removal and resignation are two different things, right? So we shall see what are all the articles that are mentioned in the Constitution of India regarding the office of vice president. Okay. So what is the constitutional role? So in his legislative capacity, vice president is the ex officio chairperson of Rajya Sabha, the upper house. So what is ex officio? It means incapacity of, because he is that, he will be this. So whoever is the vice president of India becomes the chairperson of Rajya Sabha. If this office falls vacant, if the office of vice president falls vacant, there is no one to fill in the place of vice president. It is left vacant. But the seat of chairperson of Rajya Sabha cannot be left vacant. So this place is taken by the deputy chairman. Okay, but the vice president of office is left vacant till the next elections are conducted. And now here again comes the major problem of not having a time frame. The constitution mentions as soon as possible. But in the case of president, you have a time frame of 6 months. So the elections have to be done within the 6 months for president. So you also learn these comparisons and read. So it becomes easy for you to remember also. And there is also a chance that they can ask these comparisons more especially in your prelims. These are two technical questions. They are not going to ask you in mains. What is the process of uh, what do you call appointing a vice president? What is the process of removing a vice president? These are not going to be your mains questions. But these can be your prelims questions in the forms of statements, wherein they will compare president and vice president, give you 4 statements and tell and ask you. Previously, the question type was what are the, identify the correct statements A, C, D. Now they're not telling you this, because in that case there is an option of elimination for you. For suppose you know that B is wrong, you will go to your options, check wherever B is not there. Maybe there is a chance that you can get to the right answer. But you know what is the latest format? Past 2 years, they are asking 2 statements are correct, 3 statements are correct out of the 4 statements they are mentioning. So you have to know each and every statement. Okay. So for those things, these tiny details become very important. The comparisons become very important, not just with India, but also with a country like America. Because American president, Indian president, American vice president, Indian vice president are usually compared when any such issues come up. So you learn these 4 things because this is in use right now. Okay. Now, vice president is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. Okay, that's his role. So what is the comparison between US vice president and Indian vice president? There he is part of the executive. Vice president is part of the executive. The president of America and the vice president of America contest together. Both are elected by the people themselves. But here in India, that is not the case. Even though president is not elected by the people directly, or the vice president is elected directly, vice president is also not part of the executive of India. That's one major difference. Okay. And about the Vice President of India, he actually represents, the voting rights are given to both the houses of the parliament, and not just Rajya Sabha, because he is chairing Rajya Sabha. That's one important point. The electoral college of vice president includes both the houses of the parliament. So when I'm saying both the houses of the parliament, these are the representatives who are coming from states, elected as member of parliaments from the states and sitting in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So what are they representing? They are representing the state. And this MP gets a right to choose who the vice president is, which means the office of vice president is elected by states indirectly. It is not just a central government role. He is equally responsible to states as well. Okay? And all the election disputes, go to the Supreme Court as per Article 71. Election disputes of whom? Vice President. Okay? Let us compare it with US Vice President. So the major difference is, here in India, he is just the chairman of Rajya Sabha. If he is the chairman of Rajya Sabha, it means he is part of the legislature. And he resigns from any political party. You are aware of it, right? He can be a political personality like Venkaiah Naidu. He was with BJP, but as before joining the office of vice president, he resigned from his political party. So he is a politically neutral person according to the constitution. Okay. So he is part of the legislative. Whereas in the case of US, he is part of the executive. He becomes part of the cabinet. About the main, as part of the main ministries who are assisting the president. Here it is the prime minister, his cabinet. Let us not go there, but I want you to understand the essence of it. He is part of the legislature in India, whereas in US, he is part of the president's cabinet as part of the executive. Okay. Next, we have a separate electoral process. He is not directly elected like any other members of the legislature. Who are the members of the legislatures? The MLAs, MPs, elected by people. So there is a separate electoral process. But here, like as the president, he contests. In the case of US, the vice president is contesting along with the president, and people vote not just for the president, but also the vice presidential candidate that he is campaigning along with him. Not in the case of India. We have a separate electoral process. Next, not automatic successor to the president. Yes, there he is the direct successor. Limited executive role, they have significant responsibilities. Yeah, so this is the major difference. And all of this comes because India has the parliamentary system. US has the presidential system. None? I will share the slide later. So important cases. Anytime when you're writing a polity answer, adding value to your answer is by mentioning certain judgments. Supreme Court judgments become very important. This is the value addition that you can do. So there are three cases. V.V. Giri case of 1969. Okay, so what happened there was V.V. Giri has resigned as the vice president to contest for the presidential election. Okay, so that has become a what do you call, a conflict of interest. And then Charanlal Sahu versus Gyani Zail Singh, the Zail Singh case, wherein the courts cannot question the validity of the election once the process is complete. As I told you, whatever processes are there as part of the houses of the parliament cannot be questioned by the Supreme Court directly as part of separation of powers theory. Only after the process is done, only after the decision is taken, then that issue becomes eligible to be contested in the courts. Okay? Then presidential role of 1974 about the voting system and the proportional representation. So what is proportional representation? Usually in our in the direct elections that are happening here, one vote equals to one value. But in the case of president and prime minister elections, there is a vote value to each MP and MLA who is contesting in the elections. So these three are the main cases that are there as part of. So why is this office of president, office of vice president becoming very important? Even though Rajya Sabha has limited powers in passing a bill or stopping a bill. You know the process of passing a bill. I'm not going there. Once it is passed in Lok Sabha, it is referred to Rajya Sabha. They can either pass the bill, they can either send it back for reconsideration. For certain types of bills, after it is sent back for reconsideration, if Lok Sabha makes any changes, does not make any changes, sends it back to Rajya Sabha has to approve. Okay, a totally different topic for a different day. I'm not getting into it, but I want you to understand that Rajya Sabha can delay a bill. Okay, that's the fact of it. They can delay the bill. Now, the role of Rajya Sabha, see, what usually happens is you usually expect a little more proficiency and more unbiased opinion from the from the upper house. Okay, people are more qualified. I'm saying all of this on record. Okay, so you expect more unbiased opinion from them. So their opinion matters. People, intellectuals listen to what a Rajya Sabha MP is speaking. So the debates that happen in Rajya Sabha are usually politically neutral. Their vote matters, their voice matters. Now, a person like the vice president is chairing the Rajya Sabha, so his office is also becoming important. And this comes when usually the majority party has more seats. In coalition governments, usually they are under check. But if they are the single majority political party, most of it becomes their will and wish as per the constitutional provisions. They get to decide most of the things. It becomes easy for them to pass any legislation they think is correct. And we know how Rajya Sabha is not able to actually valuably contribute to democracy lately. With the increasing awareness, with all the issues that are happening, vice president is also becoming important. Okay. Now, as the chairperson, you expect him to maintain this neutrality. And we already talked about how he is a politically neutral person, even though in his career at one point of time he is a political representative or as a part of a political party, resigns from the political party and comes in his individual capacity. Okay. And usually, it is seen as a stepping stone to presidency. So, who all did this? Mr. Radhakrishnan, Zakir Hussain, V.V. Giri, Shankar Dayal Sharma, Venkaiah Naidu. All of them have served as the Vice President of India and are at one or the other time have been considered as president candidates. Okay, before becoming an MLA, you contest as a corporator. Same like that. It is not mandatory. Not everyone who is contesting here is going there. You understand the comparison? Okay. Now, as is it is with any other constitutional provision, we keep evolving. Supreme Court keeps giving new interpretations to it, new additions to it. So is it with the role of vice president also. It continuously evolves with the constitutional framework. Why? For the main reason is balancing the legislative responsibilities. We have discussed already, Indian vice president is part of the legislature. Okay? Recent parliamentary sessions. The critical role of the chairman for productive legislative debate. It becomes really important that he is neutral. The voices of the opposition is not suppressed. Okay. Just give me a minute. ఏమైంది బాగాలేదా బాగాలేదా ఏమైంది అయ్యో లాస్ట్ 4 స్లైడ్స్ బాగాలేదు Okay, now we'll just see some facts about the Vice President of India. He is the second highest constitutional authority. Who is the first? President. We will see what are the articles. Okay. What is the article that talks about the Vice President? The first article, 60. 60 వరకు అందరూ చెప్తారు తర్వాత. Talks about the Vice President of India. Okay? And Article 64 makes him the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. Okay? Article 63 talks about Vice President. Article 64 ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. Okay? Now, Article 65. If the office of president falls vacant, now vice president will fill in the vacancy. Okay, so where is the vice president getting this right from? According to Article 65. 63 is talking about Vice President of India. 64 is talking about ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. So Vice President is given this role. 60. Next. 65 is talking about if the presidency falls vacant, Vice President is filling in the gap of the President. And there is one more difference here with US Vice President and Indian Vice President. In case of US Vice President, for the remaining term, they have a term of 4 years. We have a term of 5 years. For them, suppose the Vice President resigned at the end of second year. Now the Vice President will become the President and serve till the end of the 4th year for the next 2 years. Election happens only after 4 years. That is in the case of US. But here in India, we have a clause of 6 months period. So the Vice President will act as a President for a maximum of 6 months. If the elections happen in a month, you get the new President. Okay, this is one major difference between filling the gap of the vacant presidency as per US and as per Indian Constitution. Okay, that's one major difference. Now, Article 65 is done. So, you remember this order. I'm giving you a hint on how to remember the flow of it. Starting from 63, first mentions the president, then next two articles talk about all roles he takes. One, in the capacity of vice president, he becomes Rajya Sabha chairman. Now, what are the additional roles that he can take? Ex officio chairman is compulsory. He gets it. What other roles can he take? He can also become a president. Now, after all of this, they talk about the elections. Article 66 talks about the election process. Okay, Article 67 talks about the election process. Next comes 66 talks about the election process. Now, article, he is elected. It talks about the term. How many days? For how many days? It talks about his term of office. Okay. Article 68 talks about the time of holding the elections in case of vacancy. Let it be resignation, let it be removal, let it be death. There can be various reasons. Okay. So after mentioning the vice president, mentioning what is the compulsory role he gets, mentioning the what can he get, then they talk about how is he elected, for how many days is he elected, what if something happens in between, in case of vacancy, what happens? It is talked in the next article, in Article 68. Okay. Next, Article 69 talks about his oath or affirmation done by President of India. Article 71, I discussed it in the first slide, about the judicial review that can be done after the election of the president. So that is talked in Article 71. Okay. Now, how does the election happen? What is the electoral college? There is both elected members and nominated members from, we are talking about the electoral roll. So what is electoral roll? Who are the people that are there, who are voting, who can vote? So there is elected members and nominated members, important, from both the houses of parliament. Okay. In the case of president's election, you have the state legislatures also participating. Even MLAs get the right to vote. But in the case of vice president, state legislatures are not participating, and this difference is important. We talked about the comparison between president and vice president. So this is important fact to remember. In the case of president, state legislatures are participating. In the case of vice president, state legislatures are not participating. It is just the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha MPs, both elected and nominated. Okay, important detail. Now, what is the eligibility and what is the voting system called? Proportional representation by single transferable vote. Okay. Now, what is the eligibility? Eligibility is talked in Article 66, Clause 3. Okay. What is the eligibility? He has to be a citizen of India. Okay. Natural citizen or acquired citizen. That's one other thing. So is it with the case of president also. So in the case of US president, he should be a natural born citizen. That's a rule. But in the case of India, even acquired citizenship, he has to be a citizen at the time of election. That's it. Doesn't mean he should specifically only be a natural born citizen. One major difference between presidency of America and India. Okay. Now, in the vice president, this clause is always there. Citizen of India clause is always there for everything, including your UPSC exam writing eligibility criteria, citizen of India, and he has to be 35 years of age, a minimum of 35 years of age. Citizen of India, 35 years of age. So this is also a criteria of MPs of Rajya Sabha. In Lok Sabha, it is 30 years. For Rajya Sabha, it is 35 years. Because he is chairing the Rajya Sabha, even he has the eligibility criteria of 35 years. Okay. And because he is chairing the Rajya Sabha, he should be eligible. All the eligibility criteria of a member to be elected in Rajya Sabha, he should also fulfill all that requirement. Okay, because he is becoming part of the Rajya Sabha. He should not hold any office of profit, same as in president. No office of profit. What is office of profit? You get a monetary benefit from an external office. Same, huh? Eligibility to become Rajya Sabha member. You were saying something? Government office. Okay. Now, who conducts the election? Election Commission of India. So, what happens is you have these secretariat heads. So, there is a secretariat head as part of Lok Sabha. There is a secretariat head as part of Rajya Sabha. So, these two chairpersons, they on a rotational basis conduct a president election and vice president election. Suppose president election is happening today. So the secretariat head of Lok Sabha is conducting the election. So whatever is the second election that is coming, let it be of the president, let it be of the vice president. The process is headed by the secretariat head of the Rajya Sabha this time. Now for the next election, let it be of the president, let it be of the vice president. It is again taken care by the Lok Sabha head. So you're understanding, on a rotational basis, they they head the process. Everything happens under Election Commission of India. Okay. And about the oath, we have already discussed. It is done under Article 69 and is done by the President of India. Okay. And what is the term? 5 years. Which article? 67. Article 67, he has a term of 5 years. And let us come to this major issue right now, resignation and removal. Who does he address his resignation to? To the President of India, because he is appointed by the President. He gives his resignation to the President. Okay, resignation is given to the President. How about the removal? As I told you, both are different. Resignation is I voluntarily give up my role. Removal is someone is calling me ineligible for whatever reasons they have, and they remove me from the office. Difference between resignation and removal. So what is the thing under removal? It is done under 67, Article 67B. He can be removed by a resolution of the Rajya Sabha, because he is chairing the Rajya Sabha. So if there is any removal motion, that is started in Rajya Sabha. In the case of president, he represents both the houses equally. So the removal of president can be started either in Rajya Sabha or in Lok Sabha. Another difference. But in the case of vice president, it can be started only in Rajya Sabha. Okay. So by the Rajya Sabha, and it is passed by, the majority becomes very important. Absolute majority. It is passed by absolute majority. The majorities always become important. Only in Rajya Sabha by absolute majority, as part of 67 clause 3 is the process of removal. Okay. And the grounds of removal are not mentioned in the constitution. Okay. So it becomes purely a political decision. Whenever nothing is mentioned, it becomes the discretion of the ruling party, discretion of the majority members, as in the ruling party, as in the prime minister. So what about the voting right of him as part of Rajya Sabha proceedings? He does not have a voting right as is, but if there is a tie, then he gets the deciding vote. Otherwise, he doesn't vote. It's just the members of the house. He is only heading the house, making sure that there is proficiency, making sure that the debate is happening unbiased. He is politically neutral, so he is not voting. Only in the case of tie, he gets a writing vote. Okay, even this is important. And we already talked about acting as the president, and it is done under Article acting as president, Article 65. First, Article 63 talks about the office of vice president, constitutional position. Next article talks about ex officio chairperson of Rajya Sabha. Because he is a president, he is getting this compulsory. Next article 65 talks about what can he be. So in case the president's office is falling vacant, he will act as a president for a maximum period of 6 months. Because for the president, there is a clause that elections have to be conducted within the time frame of 6 months. There is no such clause for the re-election of vice president. Okay. So Article 65, Article 66. Now the office and all is done. What is Article 66? First election, electoral process. Now elect Article 67. For how many years are we electing him for? About his term of office, which is 5 years. Now the term is done. 68. Now we have decided that he's staying for 5 years. What if he's not staying for 5 years? What are the four reasons? Maybe the term is over. When can the office fall vacant? When the term is over, when he resigned, when he is removed, or death. So there are four reasons. Under these four reasons, the office fall vacant. Done. The office is falling vacant. Next, oath, which is done by the president. Okay. Done. Because there is no specific legislative function that he is doing, the office of president, only these articles become important if they want to ask factual. If they want to compare and see, they compare with the Indian president, Indian vice president, Indian vice president, and American vice president. So these are the lines you usually get questions on. Okay. Any doubts? No? That's it? Okay.
Or you have an example. Thanks. Uh,